You're listening to The Big Lift, the podcast of Web Trends Optimize, the CRO solution that enables marketers and developers to maximize the ROI on their digital properties. Web Trends Optimize is a powerful, feature-rich and easy-to-use solution, all delivered within a fixed-price contract with no additional cost for increased functionality ever. During these podcasts, we meet some of the key influencers within the marketing and conversion world to understand their roles and examine their challenges. In the first episode of Series 2, I talk with Clare, Director of Product and Portfolio Strategy, Fundraising and Marketing at Cancer Research UK. With a marketing career starting with Thomas Cook, Club 1830, to a senior marketing position at Cancer Research UK, I inquire how her views on marketing have changed during that time. In addition, COVID-19 has meant that Cancer Research UK's fundraising activities has had to move from community-based to online. I find out how they've managed it and what the future holds. So Claire, I thought as a young marketer being in Thomas Cook around the heydays of Club 1830 must have been an exciting time. What was it like and what attracted you to joining Thomas Cook at that time?
Yeah, so I actually joined the company before Thomas Cook. So there was a company called Flying Colours that used to run the Club 1830 brand, and I joined that when I was 19 years old. And I'd been to college, and I'd done a travel and tourism BTEC. I don't even know if they
Right.
have BTECs these days, but
I'm
that's
not
what it
sure
was
either
then.
now.
Yeah, that's what it was then. And there was a job ad that one of my old tutors that I got along well with saw. She sent it to me because when I'd done the travel and tourism course, I kind of said quite clearly, I'm interested in travel, but I don't want to be a travel agent. I don't want to do certain types of jobs. I don't want to work in business travel.
Mhm.
And it seemed like the type of job that was more akin to what I was looking for. It was for a tour operator, sort of working on creating brochures initially and looking after product. So that's where I started. It was my first ever proper job interview, or I'd say a career job interview at the age of 19. And I don't know quite how, but with no experience, I managed to get the job.
You must have been very convincing.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I managed to get the job when I was 19 and then kind of worked my way through the organisation, starting in that role. And then Thomas Cook bought us after a year or so of me working there. Yeah, and they owned the brand at that point. Yeah, so it was fun. It was very fun. So that's what attracted me. The fact that someone actually sent me the job ad and was like, go for this job. I was like, okay, I'll do as I'm told.
Very obedient.
Yeah, luckily I loved it and I got on well there and I stayed for 11 years, which is a long time. They kicked me out when I was 30.
Because that must have been at the very start of the kind of digital era, perhaps a little bit before then.
It was a little bit before. So I remember us launching our first ever website and thinking, what is this? And actually, I worked there even before people used email. So I remember spending hours at a fax machine, sending out pages and pages to our multiple resorts, just making sure they had all the information that they needed and we had the information back from them. So it was very, very different then. Gosh, it makes me sound really old.
Well, actually, it doesn't make you sound old. It makes you actually have that credibility that you know what it was like.
Yeah,
And digital has brought a lot of great things, but it's a lot easier as a job because you're sitting at a desk as opposed to going to printers and clipping
yeah,
pieces of photograph and things like that. But
yeah.
I think it's definitely those people who have gone through that phase of non-digital marketing actually come to digital with a kind of an excitement and an energy because they've seen what it was like before.
Yeah, and it was hard work.
It was.
It was really hard work and a lot of it very boring. Faxing 20-page documents is not that interesting in all honesty. And now you can just send them at the click of a button. But yeah, and I also remember the advent of social media and again thinking, what is this? Why do you need to talk to people online? Because you can just pick up the phone and now it's a lot of people's primary communication channel, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I've got a number of children, and the differences between what I experienced as a teenager and going on, and what they've experienced as teenagers, and the way they adapt to technology is amazing.
Yeah.
and they live on devices.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, that's the biggest bugbear in my house between me and my kids. It's like, get off your devices. We even had an experience where my son had his best friend round to play, but because they couldn't play one of the games as a two-player game at my house, his friend asked to go home so they could play online with each other.
Yes.
And that to me is madness. Why would you rather be in separate houses playing together rather than actually playing together in the same place?
Now you are showing your age.
I know, very odd.
So you spent, as you say, you spent 11 years or so at Thomas Cook of head of marketing, Club 1830, and you've been with Cancer Research nearly 13 years.
Yes.
Now those two companies to me seem like at entirely different ends of the spectrum. One is young, frivolous, do whatever you want to kind of do, go out and enjoy yourself, get drunk. And the other one is very much around a different part of life, which I would say is much more serene, much more contemplative. And moving from Thomas Cook, where I thought you had lots of energy and things like that in the business, to Cancer Research, how was it like making that move? That must have been quite strange.
Yeah. When I left Club 1830, I had such a great time there. It was loads of fun. You work with now with a lot of people that I met then.
Yeah.
They're some of my closest friends. So we had a good time. It was just loads of fun, loads of energy, like you say. But I kind of got to the stage in my life and my career where I was a little bit older, a little bit jaded. Well, the really good thing about Club 1830 is what we were doing was we were providing something people wanted.
Hmm.
If you think about the customers, we were providing something that they enjoyed. It was fun, it was energetic, and there was a lot of love for that brand. But I wanted to do something with my skills that felt more purposeful, because I did feel that what I was doing was purposeful because it was bringing joy to people, it was bringing fun to
Hmm.
people. But I wanted to continue doing something purposeful, but a bit more purposeful. And at the time, I thought, actually, I feel like I want to work for a charity. I knew I wanted to get out of travel because it was incredibly volatile, and I think if you look now with COVID, like the people in hospitality, travel, leisure, I really feel for them because it's going through such a hard time. But those industries, particularly travel, have always been quite volatile because the margins are quite low.
Hmm.
So I deliberately wanted to change sectors, but do something purposeful. And at the time, one of my close friends, her son, who was very young, I think he was 8 at the time, got brain cancer. And it was just awful. And we lost him. And it made me really think carefully about what I wanted to do. So I thought, I want to work for a charity, and ideally a cancer charity. I went for a few interviews at various places, and I was lucky enough to get the job at Cancer Research UK. And what I was really impressed about when I first started working there, and even now, is I thought, coming from a commercial organisation moving to a charity, it would be quite easy. And I don't think I really realised how commercial charities were and how focused they were. But they have to be, because we're not selling things. Club 1830 was easy because you were selling something people wanted.
Hmm.
What but what we do at Cancer Research UK is we drive belief that there's a solution. And I think, I mean, that is so important. And I think, as someone who started working there because they were touched by cancer, you can feel it in everything we do. So everything we do is purposeful. So even if you have a really bad day, it's worth it, because you
Yeah.
know that what you're doing is going to be positive for many, many people. So it wasn't as much of a shift as you'd think, really. I think that I did have to grow up a little bit.
Right.
Some of the casualness of working for a youth holiday brand, it just didn't seem appropriate. Working for a bigger organisation and charity. And if anyone looked at my CV, they'd go, God, you worked for Club 1830 and now you're a director of Cancer Research UK. That's so odd. But
That's what I first
yeah,
looked at your LinkedIn profile. I thought, gosh,
but the transition wasn't as hard as you'd expect. And I think because we still have a lot of fun, we don't go in and there isn't this grey cloud over everyone because you work for a charity, and what we do
yeah.
is it can be pretty traumatic sometimes, but there's so much joy in what we do. So if you look at the progress that we've made at Cancer Research UK over the last few years, it's so motivating. It's really motivating. And because what we do is quite serious, the subject is quite serious, you have to build fun into your day, you have to build fun into your work so that you can still enjoy what you do because you spend most of your days there. And it is a really joyful place to be because of what we do. We're saving lives, and it might seem quite trite, but it's it's actually true. And what's more motivating than that? So yeah.
Were there anything that you brought from Thomas Cook with regard to marketing strategies and things like that that worked and changed the way that cancer research were doing things? Or was it a kind of, well, this was one compartment of my life, Club 1830, and now I
Yeah,
have to think differently?
I think later on, some of the stuff that I brought. So when I started there, I started in it was called Internet and New Media then. So when I first started at Cancer Research UK, but I think that Cancer Research UK were definitely more digitally advanced than when I was at Thomas Cook. But I think later on in my career, when I moved into more pure marketing roles, what I brought then from my Club 1830 days was a boldness in terms of creative to make sure that what we were doing really cut through to the audiences that we needed to speak to. And I think that boldness really helped us stand out and kind of drive change, because in advertising there are things that can be quite formulaic in the charity world. So I think that boldness just helped us cut through and do things in a slightly different way, maybe be a little bit more risky. And I had the confidence to be a bit more risky, and I think that really helped with our advertising at the time.
20 years ago, when my late wife passed away with breast cancer, I was very much involved in the cancer research, the laboratories, the oncologists, and things like that. And it was a very serious place to
Yeah,
be. It wasn't the kind of what I see now in the advertising and the thing about race for life and all
yeah,
that sort of thing, which is just much more about it being
yeah,
survivable as opposed to almost a death sentence that was issued.
yeah.
Was that a conscious decision to move in that direction, or was it something that just evolved over
No,
time?
it was conscious because people have to believe in what we're doing. People need hope that there is a solution. And if people don't have hope, the work we do isn't going to feel relevant to them. And we are making progress. It is hard because cancer isn't one thing. There are 200 types of cancer. So we might do well in one cancer, but we might not be doing as well in another cancer. So you need to be able to build that hope that if, say, for example, testicular cancer, that's a cancer that we've made lots of advancements in. So if people hear that and understand that, they might think, oh, well, we still need to continue to support because there's all of these other cancers that need to be tackled. But I can see that you can make progress because you've done it here. So it was definitely, without a doubt, purposeful that we made that change, because people aren't going to support an organisation where they don't think progress is being made.
But over the years, I mean, since I've been very aware of cancer research, you guys have built up a very strong reputation for community based
Yeah,
fundraising, the ability to get people out on the street, race for life, whatever it might be. I mean, COVID must have really affected the way that people perceive how they can raise money for cancer research and other charities as well. I mean, how has it changed your level of fundraising, and what have you had to do to be able to adapt?
Yeah, I mean, when COVID first hit, I mean, none of us knew how long lockdown or the various lockdowns would be, or how long this whole state would last for. But it was a huge issue for us because, as you say, a lot of our income is brought in through community-based fundraising. We've got our stable income streams of legacies and committed givers. They're people that give us like certain amount of money each month. So those income streams were a little bit more stable, but we still drive those two big income streams a lot through face-to-face communication as well. So we had, first of all, we had to make sure that our big income streams were shored up. Um, and then also things like our community based fundraising, Race for Life. What were we going to do? Because they're all
Mhm.
driven out in the communities. It's all about joint participation. If you've ever been to a Race for Life, it's all about the kind of feel of the day, everyone being involved together. So what were we going to do? So we created like a working group around our community-based fundraising streams to make sure that we could drive as much as we could online. And that wasn't easy. People aren't used to fundraising in that way. It wasn't natural for the people that have been with us for years to suddenly move from a bake sale to some sort of, I don't know, digital fundraising quiz. That's not
Mhm.
natural for them. So the first thing we had to do was provide reassurances to our supporters that we were still there for them, we still needed them now more than ever actually, and to give them really clear direction and tools so that they could still fundraise for us. And one of the first things we did was actually an online quiz, because you could see that was kind of popping up in lots of different places, and it was a really good way to engage our supporters as well. And then over the next couple of weeks, we started to move things like Race for Life online. So rather than doing a Race for Life in a park with lots and lots of people, which is what is so fabulous about it, it was do a virtual Race for Life, still get involved, still fundraise for us. And that did okay. But I think because it didn't have the community element around it, we had to shift a bit more for that particular product. So later on in the year, we created a campaign around a weekend. We called it a very 2020 Race for Life. And it was all focused on one weekend. People signed up digitally and they all did the race virtually. And that was so successful for us because the key to that was, even though it was virtual, it still felt like it was community led because everyone was doing it at the same
Yeah.
time, and it felt like we were still part of a family. So it was trying to use digital elements to create that sense of community online rather than offline, and that did really well for us actually. And on our community groups, there was so much positive chatter about people being involved. We created a social media group where people felt like they were supported in their training, they were supported on the weekend, and they were supported in their fundraising. So we learned a lot through that process. And for our community based fundraisers, the people that do bake sales or fashion events or whatever that might be, we needed to give them the tools to understand how to fundraise through streaming platforms, how to fundraise through Facebook, how to fundraise
Mhm.
through YouTube, so that they actually had the tools available to them to be able to do that, because it wasn't innate. They didn't know how to do it. And giving them those tools made a huge difference.
With the wind in the right direction, we're going to get through COVID hopefully
Yeah.
this year, although there will be some ongoing effects of COVID. Do you think what you've learned in the past 12 months from a digital perspective is going to be sustained once you go back to the much more community based fundraising that you've been doing in
Yeah,
the past?
definitely. And I think what what the reason it will be sustained is because we had to do a lot of development. And previously, you didn't have that burning platform to do that development, and there wasn't the kind of audience need to do it either. Whereas I think now, because we've got some of the foundational elements set up because of COVID, we've actually got these great digital platforms. We've got the right plugins, we've got Strava plugins, Fitbit plugins to make sure that we people can use those tools to help with their fundraising and they understand how to do it. So without a doubt, we will retain that and we will build on that because audiences change as well. People now know that they
Yeah.
can fundraise in this way, and actually, it's quite easy. And they'll do a mixture, I suspect, going forward. And we just need to work out what propositions or what products are still relevant off the back of COVID and make sure we're providing the right things for people to do that rather than just making assumptions that what we did through COVID is the right thing going forward. We'll just have to adapt to whatever the relevant needs are at the time. And we've got the agility to do that now, whereas before we didn't.
So I would say that the last 12 months, you've probably been drinking from a digital fire hose, i.e. there's lots of things coming at you because you're changing from this very community-based into much more digitally focused than you were before. Is there still the same emphasis on testing your content, testing the pages and making sure it all works? Or are you just trying to get fresh content out there all the time?
No, I mean, testing is a core foundation of any strong digital work. If you don't
Mhm.
test, you don't understand what the audience wants. You don't provide them with the right information at the right time in the right way. So if you don't test it, you don't understand it, and you could end up actually inadvertently killing a proposition because you just haven't got the right setup. So for Cancer Research UK, it's incredibly important to make sure testing is at the forefront of what we do.
Yeah, I think testing is vitally important. I can just see that, like many organisations, they've gone through this huge change from being whether they're retailed in physical stores to being online or much more focus online. They're actually driving just to be able to play catch up, and some of them lose focus of what testing is all about because they've got so much content they need to get out to be able to make a difference. And
Yeah,
I would have expected you to answer the way you did, that testing is really important, because I know that you need to be able to get it right more often than getting it wrong, and
yeah.
testing is a particularly good part of that. Do you think life is going to change post COVID? Do you think, and I'm talking about, digitally post COVID, is it going to change for you that you are going to have to mix and match the community based and the digital based or the online stuff and all the social stuff that you've been doing? Is that going to add a great workload?
Yeah, we've got a big program internally at the moment to make us more digitally enabled. COVID has kind of pushed that forward much faster than previously we'd been able to, which is great. But it is so important in order for us to drive not just our fundraising, but our information sharing as well. And even things like grant management. If we're not digitally enabled and we're not able to get the information out there at the right time, in the right place, at the right speed, people have got quite short attention spans now, and they'll just either go somewhere else for their information or they will fundraise for someone else because they'll be receiving the content in a more suitable way for them. So for us to maintain our market leading position, we need to be leading the digital charge, I feel, because sometimes smaller charities, they can move much more quickly than us. We're a big ship. And I think that digital is and will continue to play a massive role in making sure that we can provide things in the right way for people. We can't underestimate that. But it's hard work, and you have to be really active in the space. You have to really understand the new technologies that are coming in. At all times, you have to understand the suppliers that are in the market to make sure that you're getting the right support in the right way, because it is complex and it changes quickly, and you need to have those trusted partners as experts helping you drive that forward.
In the post COVID, Everybody, I believe, feels that COVID has taken the spotlight away from most of the other charities. I mean, the great work that Sir Tom Moore put together, Captain Tom Moore, raising so much money for the NHS. Um, do you feel as though you're now going to have to play catch up once COVID becomes less of the headlines?
I think it's quite a long answer. There's no charity that does bad work. There's no purpose that don't have a really strong purpose. But cancer is, even through COVID, and will remain to be the biggest killer in the UK for a long time, I think,
Mhm.
because it is indiscriminate. One in two people will get it. And COVID has really slowed down the brakes of some of our research because we we aren't able to fund as much as we were able to previously because of we haven't been able to fundraise as well as we did previously.
Mhm.
But also it has disrupted cancer services. So I think that the focus has been on the NHS, but the NHS is not a charity. There are collections of charities that
Mhm.
support the NHS, and I think there are other causes that have kind of had more of a spotlight on them through COVID, and I can absolutely understand that. But cancer will still be. I'm just trying to think of the word. Um, it's still there, and it affects everybody, and will continue to do so.
Yeah.
So we do need to make sure that people understand us and continue to support us, not to the detriment of other charities, because, like I say, all charities have got really strong purposes, but the relevancy for most individuals up and down the country remains
Mhm.
for cancer. So we are going to have to work hard to communicate that relevancy over the coming weeks, months, years. And I think we have already seen a bit of a shift in that because of the slowdown in cancer services, because of the research we've had to kind of defund as well. So there is going to be a lot of work that we need to do, but it won't be at the detriment of other charities. It's just working out how we can get that support in different ways, I think.
We're drawing to a close, so I'm going to take you back to one of the first questions I talked about, which was you as your 19-year-old self when you got your first role with Flying Colours. What nuggets of wisdom would you pass to, say, a young marketer joining the first flush of their careers when they're just starting out?
Yeah, I would say be curious. I would say participate, be an active member of whatever team you're in. And I would also say be action oriented and think about solutions rather than problems, because I think those are the people that anyone in management really notice and are drawn to, because they're the people that are going to help drive forward progress in whatever it is they're doing. So I think curiosity is one of the biggest things. I really do. If you're not curious and you're not asking the right questions at the right times, you're not going to get the information you need. People that help find solutions are always the curious people. Otherwise, it's just a full stop, and no one needs a full stop when there's work. You want someone who's going to help deliver whatever needs to be delivered. And I think that those qualities are things that make great future leaders as well.
So, one last question. When looking for somebody new in your team or any member of a marketing team, which would be more important and why? And you can only choose one of these: relevant experience, a degree in a marketing discipline, or a sim qualification.
Right. See, this is quite hard because I never went to uni, right? So I would always go for someone with having relevant
Mhm.
experience. But for me, it's sometimes less about the experience, but more about the ambition and the attitude. So that's what I'd always look for.
In my career, I've always, when people have come on board, I've always looked for, as you say, at some level of experience, whether it's entirely relevant or has some relevance, is very important. And I think that the
Yeah,
sim qualification now is probably almost supersedes a marketing discipline or a degree in a marketing discipline. And I think there's
yeah,
much more about the digital aspect of it, that people need to get their heads around quickly. And I think the SIM system seems to work that pretty well. And therefore, once they understand that, then they can start to fly as a new starter inside of a business.
Yeah, I'd definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with that. But I think everyone brings a different quality to a team, and I think a good manager, right, will understand what qualities are missing and what qualities they need. So I really think it is about the right type of experience and the right type of knowledge that you can bring rather than a specific qualification.
So Claire, it's been a blast. I've really enjoyed it. It's obviously been very close to my own heart, this cancer research, but it's been fantastic. I thank you for your time. I know it's a very busy time for you at the moment, and I'm sure we'll speak again.
Yeah, lovely to chat. Nice to speak to you, and speak soon. Say hi to the boys for me.
Yeah, will do.